My mother-in-law handed me a glass of sangria and said, "Just for you, sweetheart." But I saw what she added to it moments earlier. I switched the glasses without a word. 45 minutes later, my father-in-law was pale, sweating, and rushing to the bathroom. That's when I knew. My in-laws weren't just toxic emotionally. They were actually dangerous. I always knew my mother-in-law didn't like me, but I never thought she'd try to drug me. It happened on a chilly Sunday evening in Charleston, South Carolina. I had just returned from a week-long photo shoot in Glacier National Park. Snow-capped peaks, frozen rivers, and bald eagles in flight. I was tired, jet-lagged, and not in the mood for dinner with the Hamiltons. But my wife, Emily, insisted. It was her mother's birthday after all. "Just a couple hours," Emily had said. "Smile, eat, and we'll be home before you know it." I should have known something was off the moment Patricia, Emily's mother, greeted me with a forced smile and an overly sweet voice. "Lena, darling, I made a special sangria just for you," she said, handing me a glass that glistened oddly in the dim kitchen light. I didn't drink it. I pretended to sip and swapped glasses with her husband, Harold, when no one was watching. I didn't expect anything dramatic. Maybe an upset stomach. A prank. But 45 minutes later, Harold was ghost white and vomiting into the guest bathroom toilet. The entire house erupted in chaos. Emily ran after her father. Patricia stood frozen, eyes darting between me and the half-empty glass on the table. I stared back at her, unblinking. That was the moment everything changed. My name is Lena Brooks, 33 years old. I'm a freelance photographer, known for capturing wildlife and natural landscapes. I've been published in National Geographic, the Sierra Club Journal, and a dozen more. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, and more importantly, it's mine. To Emily's family, however, none of that mattered. Her father, Harold, is a corporate attorney obsessed with resumes and retirement plans. Her mother, Patricia, used to be a high society event planner, the kind of woman who knows which fork to use for oysters and considers anyone without a trust fund a temporary inconvenience. I was never enough. For years, I endured their backhanded compliments and thinly veiled insults. "How's the little photo hobby going?" Harold would ask. Patricia once introduced me as Emily's creative friend at a charity function. I laughed it off. Emily always squeezed my hand under the table, a silent apology for her parents. I stayed quiet for Emily's sake. I didn't want to come between her and her family, but after what happened at that dinner table, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I took the untouched glass home with me, sealed it in a bag and called Jason, a chemist friend I'd worked with on a science photography project 2 years earlier. "I need a test," I told him. Quietly. "Personal or professional?" he asked. "Both," I said. I didn't tell Emily. Not yet. I needed proof, real undeniable evidence. I needed to know exactly what was in that drink, and why Patricia had prepared it just for me. Because from the look in her eyes that night, I knew this wasn't an accident. It was a warning. Or worse, an attack. 3 days later, Jason called. His voice was tight, unusually serious. "Lena, there were benzodiazepines in that drink. Not a lot, but enough to knock someone out for several hours. Depending on body weight, maybe even cause confusion or memory loss." I exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the window. Outside, morning fog clung to the pines like secrets. "Do you want it in writing?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Email. PDF. Signed." He paused. "Do I want to know what this is about?" "No," I replied, my voice flat. "But thank you." I hung up and sat in silence, letting the information sink in. She had drugged me. Not metaphorically. Not emotionally. Literally. The woman who once baked me apple pies, who sent birthday cards with glittering cursive, had tried to incapacitate me. And she would have succeeded. If I hadn't trusted my gut and switched the glasses, I could have gone to the police. I thought about it. But Patricia wasn't careless. She was cunning. There was no motive on paper. No witnesses who'd confirm it wasn't just a mix-up. And if I made noise, she'd spin it. Claim stress. Blame her medications. Say I was overreacting. Or worse, jealous of their wealth, trying to stir up drama. No, I needed more. So I waited. Observed. Dug. It didn't take long to find the cracks. Patricia had 3 different prescriptions for anti-anxiety meds under 3 variations of her name: Patricia Hamilton, Trish Hamilton, and Pia Hamilton, all from doctors in different states. She filled them like clockwork, double dosing, overlapping scripts. I found court records from 10 years ago, a sealed civil suit from a former friend who'd accused her of theft. And at her country club? Whispers of jewelry going missing during brunches. Emily didn't know any of it. She saw her mother through rose-tinted memories and holiday dinners. Patricia had worked hard to keep it that way. I kept collecting, quietly. Then came the opportunity. One afternoon, Emily mentioned her mom was asking about a new social media profile. She wants you to take the photos, she said, laughing like it was a harmless favor. Oh, I replied casually. She asked for me specifically? Yeah. Said she liked the way you make people look natural. I smiled. Tell her I'll stop by Saturday morning. That Saturday, I arrived at the Hamiltons' estate alone. My camera bag on one shoulder. A sealed manila envelope tucked inside. Patricia greeted me in pearls and beige linen. Gerald was out golfing, she explained. Let's set up in the garden, she said, already walking toward the back door. Before we start, I said, pulling out the envelope, you might want to read this. She paused. Her expression shifted, just for a second, before she reached out with trembling hands. Inside was the toxicology report, and a list of her overlapping prescriptions, neatly printed, cross-referenced. When she looked up, her smile was gone. You little manipulative. No, I interrupted. I'm the one who didn't drink your cocktail. Her jaw clenched. You have no proof. I pointed at the paper. I have enough. But that's not why I'm here. Then why? She hissed. I leveled my gaze. Because next time you won't get a warning. Patricia didn't respond right away. She stood there, envelope in hand, face unreadable, calculating. Gerald will never believe you, she said finally. I don't need him to, I replied. But I wonder what Emily would think if I showed her this. Her nostrils flared. You wouldn't. I tilted my head. You sure about that? She folded the envelope slowly, almost carefully, like she was containing her panic between creases. Then she straightened her spine and slipped back into her familiar tone, the polished, performative kind. The one she used at charity galas and PTA meetings. Lena, dear. Let's not escalate this unnecessarily. Surely there's a way for us to move forward gracefully. I smiled politely. There is. You stop interfering in our marriage. You stop trying to sabotage me. And you never, ever drug me again. She scoffed. You think I respect you now? No, I said. But you'll fear me. And for people like you, that's close enough. Her hand twitched toward the envelope again. I could see her weighing it, how much damage it could do if it got out. How much worse it could get if it landed in Gerald's hands. Or Emily's. I walked past her toward the patio door. No photos today, Patricia. We both have some thinking to do. That evening, Emily noticed I was quieter than usual. Tired? She asked, touching my hand gently. Just distracted, I said. I had a weird vibe at your parents' house. She frowned. Weird how? I opened my mouth but then stopped. Not yet. I wasn't going to let Patricia twist this. I needed more than documents. I needed something undeniable. The next day, I paid a visit to someone who owed me a favor. Vanessa, Owen's wife. Emily's sister-in-law. We'd always gotten along but never deeply. Still, I remembered her reaction the day Patricia made a comment about some women marrying above their station. So I asked her, have they ever tried to sabotage you? She blinked at me, then looked down. They tried to convince Owen I was cheating, she said finally. Hired a private investigator. Paid a girl from his gym to flirt with him and send messages from my phone. My jaw clenched. Why didn't you say anything? She sighed. Because he didn't believe me at first. I almost left. But then I found proof. Would you be willing to share it? Vanessa studied me carefully, then nodded. If it helps you protect Emily, yes. That night she sent me a zip file. Screenshots. Emails. Even a voice memo Patricia accidentally left on Owen's voicemail, talking to Gerald about planting doubt. I listened to it twice, then copied everything to a backup drive. By now the pattern was clear. Patricia wasn't just toxic, she was strategic, calculated, and dangerous. But I had the one thing she feared: receipts. The next step wasn't confrontation. It wasn't exposure. Not yet. It was time to lay the trap and let her walk straight into it. Emily thought we were just going for dinner. "Mom wants to talk," she said on the drive over. She said she's been feeling distant lately. Wants to reconnect. I smiled tightly. Patricia was trying to flip the script, play the victim before I could expose the truth. It was almost predictable. As we pulled up to the Grand Colonial home, I noticed Gerald's car missing. "Dad's at a work dinner," Emily explained. "Just us girls." Of course, Patricia wanted me alone. She greeted us at the door like nothing had happened. Hugs, fake smiles, wine poured before we could take our coats off. "To new beginnings," she said. I raised my glass but didn't drink. Dinner was awkward. Patricia asked questions about my work but didn't listen to the answers. Emily chatted about redecorating our apartment, trying to bridge the silence between us. When dessert arrived, Patricia set down a dish in front of me with a flourish. Special blend of chamomile and valerian. Good for the nerves. I stared at the tea. I wasn't thirsty. Instead, I pulled a small USB drive from my pocket and placed it beside my plate. Patricia's eyes locked on it like it was a live grenade. "What's that?" she asked, voice tight. "Something I thought you should see." I didn't wait for permission. I stood and walked over to the wall-mounted TV, connected the drive, opened the folder labeled Pattern of Behavior. First up, footage from their kitchen. Patricia, alone, pouring clear liquid from a vial into a glass. Timestamp: the night of her birthday dinner. Emily leaned forward. "Wait. Mom, is that?" Patricia froze. Next, voice memos from Vanessa's files. Patricia talking about planting doubt and making it look like Lena was unstable. Then photos of the prescription bottles. Different doctors. Overlapping dates. Emily stood up. "Mom, what the hell is this?" "It's not what it looks like," Patricia said quickly. "She's manipulating all of this. She's jealous. She wants to isolate you." I turned toward her. "You tried to drug me, then frame me, then lie about it. And now you want to gaslight me again." Emily looked between us. Her face pale, eyes wide with realization. "Is this true?" she whispered. Patricia reached out. "Honey, listen." "Don't," Emily said, pulling away. "Just don't." Silence stretched across the room like broken glass. I shut off the TV, picked up the USB. "I was never trying to take Emily away from her family," I said calmly. "But you were. And you would have kept going if I hadn't stopped you." Patricia sank into a chair, all pretense shattered. Emily took my hand. Her grip was trembling. "We're leaving," she said. I nodded and we walked out together. In the car, neither of us spoke for a while. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you for not letting me become her." I didn't respond. I just squeezed her hand. The trap had closed. But I wasn't done yet. The morning after we confronted Patricia, I received an anonymous package at my studio. Inside was a small velvet pouch containing a silver bracelet, one I'd seen Emily wearing in old photos but hadn't seen in years. Along with it, a note: "You're not the first she tried to erase. Be careful. Vanessa." I hadn't spoken to her since I got the security footage. I called her immediately. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "She gave that bracelet to Owen's ex-girlfriend," she replied. "After she pushed her out. Said she was reclaiming her son's future. I thought you might want it. In case she tries again." There was a long pause. "She won't stop, Lena," Vanessa added, "unless someone makes her." And I intended to. That afternoon, I met with a lawyer, Maya Park, a friend of a friend who specialized in family coercion and defamation cases. I laid out the documents, the footage, the lab report, the overlapping prescriptions, the recordings of Diane planning to poison me, and more. When I finished, Maya looked stunned. "You have a case," she said. "Not just civil, Lena. Potential criminal charges, assault, harassment, coercive control. And if we dig deeper, maybe insurance fraud or misuse of controlled substances. Can we make it stick?" "Only if Emily is willing to testify." I nodded slowly. "She will." But she needs time. Emily had been quiet since the dinner. She went to work like normal, but at home she moved like a ghost. She wasn't angry, just numb. The kind of numb that happens when your entire childhood turns out to be a carefully curated illusion. I didn't pressure her. I just kept building the case. And then something unexpected happened. Gerald called. He wanted to meet. Alone. I agreed, but only if Maya could sit nearby. I wasn't making the same mistake twice. We met at a cafe off the highway. He looked smaller than usual. Less polished. The weight of reputation cracking around the edges. I came to talk peace, he said, sipping his espresso. Define peace, I replied. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside. A signed statement admitting that Patricia had drugged the drink. A list of the medications she'd used. And an agreement to withdraw from Emily's life until she invited them back in. No lawyers. No charges. No scandal, he said. And why should I accept this? Because she's unraveling, he said, voice low. She's always been unstable, but after your presentation, she's gotten worse. I'm trying to protect my family. I met his eyes. No, Gerald. You're trying to protect yourself. He didn't deny it. Before I left, I gave him one final warning. If you try to spin this or turn her against me again, I won't hesitate. The footage, the recordings, they go public. He nodded, defeated. That night I showed Emily the statement. She read it, then whispered. He's trying to clean up the mess without admitting how deep it goes. Yes, I said. But we can finish what they started. On our terms. She nodded. I'm ready. The next morning, Emily and I walked into the courthouse together. She clutched the envelope with the statement Gerald had signed, and I carried the USB drive with everything else. Video evidence, toxicology reports, prescription histories, and transcripts of voice recordings. We weren't filing a lawsuit yet. We were there to notarize everything, seal it, and submit a legal affidavit documenting the harassment, manipulation, and the attempted poisoning, just in case they ever tried to twist the truth. Afterward, we sat in the car, staring out the windshield in silence. I feel like I'm burying my childhood, Emily said finally. You're not, I told her gently. You're cutting out the rot so something new can grow. That evening we held a family meeting, our own version, on neutral ground at our apartment. Owen and Vanessa arrived first. He looked pale, withdrawn. He hadn't spoken to his father since the last dinner. Vanessa held his hand like she was bracing for another collapse. Then Patricia and Gerald arrived. They looked hollow, like people clinging to a script that no longer fit the scene. I assume this is another ambush, Patricia said flatly, glancing around. No, Emily said firmly. It's a burial. She laid the notarized statement on the table. You tried to control my life, manipulate my marriage, poison my partner. I won't let it happen again. Patricia's mask cracked for the first time. I only ever did what I thought was best. For who? Emily shot back. For me? Or for the version of me you could control? Patricia said nothing. Gerald cleared his throat. Let's not be dramatic. Emily turned to him. You knew. You covered for her. That's not strength. That's cowardice. Owen sat silent for most of it. Then finally he looked up. You did this to her. You did it to Vanessa. And now to Lena. He turned to me. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. Vanessa nodded. We both are. I didn't need their apology, but it mattered. As the conversation wound down, Emily stood tall. You will not speak to me unless I initiate it. You will not visit unless invited. And you will never again try to interfere in my marriage. Gerald looked down. Patricia didn't even try to argue. We walked them out without hugs, without warmth, just the cold, unmistakable end of their power. When the door shut, Emily let out a long breath and crumpled into my arms. I feel free, she whispered. You are, I said. We are. That night we slept without fear, without walls, without wondering what scheme was waiting around the corner. Not because they changed, but because we did. 6 months passed. Gerald and Patricia stayed on the sidelines, sending occasional polite texts, but never crossing the lines we had drawn. There were no more drop-ins. No more condescending suggestions, no backhanded insults disguised as concern. Just silence and boundaries. Emily started therapy. So did Owen. Their sessions were painful but necessary. Decades of control and emotional conditioning don't unravel overnight. Vanessa remained a steady rock for her husband, and I stood by mine. As for me, I poured everything into my work. My photography business flourished. I booked 3 gallery showcases, landed a campaign for a regional tourism board, and licensed a wildlife series to National Geographic. Gerald never said a word about it again. He didn't have to. His silence was its own acknowledgement. Then one morning, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. No note, just documents. The deed to the cottage Emily and I had been renting, signed over in full, clean, irrevocable, and a trust fund certificate for our future child. It wasn't an apology. Gerald wasn't capable of that. But it was something else. Maybe guilt. Maybe respect. Maybe just his way of saying you were never just the photographer. When I showed Emily, she stared at the papers for a long time before folding them up. I'm keeping them, she said. But I'll never forget what it cost to earn them. The next spring our daughter was born. We named her Mara. The first time Gerald and Patricia met her, they stood at a careful distance in the hospital room. Gerald asked to hold her. Emily said no. That was enough. Time passed. Emily and I moved into the cottage, now our home. I converted the attic into a studio. On warm evenings, we'd sit on the porch while Mara napped, watching the mountains turn gold in the setting sun. And I realized something I'd never put into words until that moment. I hadn't beaten them by yelling, accusing, or even proving them wrong. I won by building something they couldn't touch. A marriage based on truth, not performance. A career that didn't need their validation. A family bound by choice, not control. Some people think